On January 30th, 1925, a cave explorer named Floyd Collins stepped into a narrow cave in Kentucky, chasing an opportunity that he believed could change his life forever. He had no idea that within hours, that same cave would become a trap and turn his name into one of the most famous tragedies in American history. Floyd Collins wasn't just exploring for adventure. At the time, Kentucky was in the middle of something known as the Cave Wars. Landowners and explorers were racing to discover caves that could be turned into tourist attractions. If you found the right cave, one close to the main road, one big enough to impress visitors, you could make a fortune. Floyd had already discovered caves before. He understood how this worked, but he was struggling to compete with bigger, more popular attractions like Mammoth Cave. He needed something new, something better, and Sand Cave seemed like the perfect opportunity. It was located closer to the road, making it easier for tourists to visit. If it turned out to be large enough, it could finally give Floyd the success he had been chasing. So on that cold January day, he went in alone. It was his first time exploring Sand Cave. At first, everything felt normal. He crawled deeper underground, navigating through tight passageways, moving carefully through rock formations that left very little space to breathe. The cave was narrow, unstable, unpredictable, but Floyd kept going. He believed there was something more inside. Eventually, he decided to turn back, and that's when everything changed. As he made his way out, squeezing through a tight section of the cave, he shifted his body slightly, and suddenly, a 27-pound rock above him came loose. It dropped instantly, pinning his ankle against the cave wall. The impact trapped him in place. At the same time, rubble collapsed around him, bearing him up to his waist. He tried to pull himself free, but he couldn't move. The space was too tight. There was no room to turn around, no way to get leverage. Every time he tried to move, the rocks around him shifted, threatening to collapse even more. He was stuck, about 60 feet below the surface, completely alone, in total darkness. At first, Floyd didn't panic. He believed someone would come looking for him soon. But hours passed, and no one came. Back above ground, people began to notice something was wrong. Floyd hadn't returned home. The next day, neighbors discovered his coat hanging outside the entrance of Sand Cave. That's when they knew something had gone terribly wrong. A search began immediately. Soon after, a 17-year-old named Jewel Estes managed to crawl deep into the cave, far enough to find him. Floyd was alive, trapped, but alive. Word spread quickly. His family arrived. Rescuers began organizing a plan. They crawled into the cave, one at a time, bringing Floyd small amounts of food and water. They spoke to him, trying to keep him awake, trying to keep him calm. At first, Floyd was hopeful. He believed they would get him out, but the situation was worse than anyone expected. The passage leading to him was extremely narrow. Only one person could reach him at a time, and even that was dangerous. The cave was unstable. Every movement risked another collapse. Rescuers tried to remove the rock pinning his ankle, but the position he was in made it nearly impossible. If they forced it, they could trigger a collapse that would bury him completely. So they made a decision. Instead of trying to pull him out through the cave, they would dig down from above, a vertical shaft, straight to where Floyd was trapped. It was a bold plan, and it was their best chance. But time was already working against them. As the rescue began, something unexpected happened. The story spread. Newspapers across the country picked it up. Reporters arrived at the scene, and soon thousands of people showed up. Crowds gathered around Sand Cave, watching, waiting, hoping for updates. Vendors set up stands. The area turned into something surreal. What should have been a rescue site began to look like a public event. It became one of the first major media frenzies in American history. A reporter named William Skeets Miller even crawled into the cave himself, reaching Floyd and speaking with him directly. His reports would later win a Pulitzer Prize. But below all of that attention, Floyd was still trapped, day after day, in complete darkness. The temperature inside the cave was cold. His body was stuck in one position, cutting off circulation to his leg. The pain was constant. He couldn't move. He couldn't escape. Rescuers continued bringing him small amounts of food and water, but it wasn't enough. And then, everything got worse. On February 4th, a collapse inside the cave blocked the original passage leading to Floyd. The narrow route rescuers had been using was gone. Now, the only way to reach him was from above. The pressure increased. The digging had to work. Rescuers worked non-stop, day and night, digging through rock and earth. The shaft needed to go down about 55 feet before they could tunnel sideways toward Floyd. But the ground was unstable. Rock slides slowed progress. Equipment failed. Every step was dangerous. And still, they kept digging. Meanwhile, Floyd's condition was getting worse. Days passed, then more days. His voice became weaker, his responses slower. The cold, the hunger, the exhaustion, it was all catching up to him. Eventually, he stopped responding altogether. Above ground, the crowds continued to grow. Thousands of people were now watching the rescue attempt unfold, waiting, hoping, but time was running out. Finally, on February 16th, after 18 days of relentless effort, rescuers broke through. They reached the space where Floyd Collins had been trapped, but when they got to him, he was already gone. He had likely died days earlier from exposure, exhaustion, and starvation. The rescue had come too late. At first, his body remained inside the cave. Retrieving him was too dangerous. Sand cave was sealed, leaving him trapped inside. But months later, his body was eventually recovered, and he was properly buried. Today, Floyd Collins rests at Mammoth Cave Baptist Church Cemetery. His story became one of the most famous tragedies in caving history, not just because of how he died, but because the entire nation watched, hoping he would survive. And in the end, it all came down to one moment, one loose rock, one shift in position, 1 second that turned opportunity into a nightmare with no way out.